Hey guys, today we saw Avengers Age of Ultron. Connor, what was the plot of Age of Ultron?
Well, Age of Ultron, the Avengers team back up to defeat the new supervillain Ultron, who Tony created through artificial intelligence he created, basically, and through some scientific bullshit. Eventually, the Avengers team up with the supervillains that were created by Stryker, basically the guy who also sort of created Ultron, and they teamed up with them and eventually created the Vision, and they fought Ultron and defeated Ultron. So, Aidan, what did you think of Avengers Age of Ultron?
Well, it was pretty bad. It was up there with Thor 2 as one of the worst movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. There was a lot of issues. You want to go more in depth about it, or?
What can I say? You gotta
Well, I mean, I will ask you what you thought of the movie, but we will go more in depth about it. What did you think?
Okay, I thought the first time I hated the movie. I really disliked it. I thought it was trash. Thought it was an insult. The second time I watched the movie, I thought it was a lot better than I thought the first time, actually. And the second time I didn't hate it, surprisingly. That being said, there were problems with the movie, and there were things I had problems with at first that I kind of got over the second viewing. So I did like it more the second time. The first time I couldn't stand the fucking movie. So I guess normally we don't start with this, but should we start with favorite part and least favorite part, and then kind of expand on everything? Because that's usually how it goes.
Yeah. My favorite part was the Hulkbuster fight. I thought it was probably one of the only well-done parts of the entire movie. It was a pretty fun fight. My least favorite part would be Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. No, they weren't so bad. I don't know. Ultron was not done too well. I don't know. There was a lot of problems I had with it, and I didn't really like it any better on the second viewing, so it's something that we'll talk a lot about, but you can... What were your favorite and least favorite parts?
Alright, so my favorite part had to be, I kind of, geez, I don't even know. I had a lot of parts I enjoyed, but, my favorite part had to probably be the, oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
Let me do least favorite part first. My least favorite part, I think a lot of, the overuse of one-liners was my least favorite part. Every character had way too many one-liners, and I do want to admit that the second time it didn't bother me as much because with the audience not overly... the first time we watched it, we had the ass-kissing midnight... Or not midnight, because they don't do those anymore. Yes, I see. They don't do those anymore, but we had those first viewing ass-kissers who were laughing at every joke, and there was one group that was like, get it? Because blah, blah, blah. Tony Stark is an Iron Man. And we're like, okay, that's great, whatever, who cares? So that bothered me the first time, the one-liners a lot more. And they still bothered me. Some people were doing the one-liners a little too much. But, yeah, the first time it bothered me. Second time, I was kind of... It still bothered me, but it wasn't as bad, I suppose. With the audience being more, less annoying. More or less annoying. And then my favorite part... you gotta love the action scenes in the Avengers. I mean, there were a lot of stupid things in it, but I did enjoy, that last Ultron action scene. I really liked how War Machine finally got his time to shine, because every movie has really underdone War Machine, I thought. And he's a pretty cool character, in my opinion. So I thought it was cool that they finally used War Machine. That was probably my favorite part, was when War Machine was doing his little crowd control. And yeah. So should we elaborate more on this film?
Yeah, you want to just go from the start and work our way all the way around?
Well, you start. I'll comment on it until I kind of get what you mean.
Well, Before we get into the plot, actually, I completely agree with your... Well, I know, but I completely agree with your assessment of everyone saying one-liners, because almost every single thing that happens in this movie is one-liners.
I would say legitimately 60% of the Avengers lines were one-liners.
More.
I don't know if it was legitimately more than 60.
The only scene that had characters
the first
talking
scene was
about
90.
the only scene that had him not talking about it or not saying one-liners was the scene where Hulk and Black Widow talk about how they're both monsters or whatever the fuck.
No, there were a few scenes. There was also the scene that they took the creation of Vision and kind of more of the roots of Civil War, that part where Iron Man and Captain America are coming into conflict a little bit. That scene had some more serious, or not more serious, but less one-liners in it. I don't think that one did. And then there were some one-liners at the end, but they toned it down a lot for that last Ultron fight, because that one was like the first fight that was supposed to be taken fully seriously. First and only fight.
But I mean, oh man, I had a lot of problems with this movie. The original cut was actually supposed to be 4 hours long, and it's pretty blatantly obvious where they cut.
Yeah, some of it seems weirdly cut because of that. And then I guess one thing I think we should start with is some of the, like we said, weird editing choices they did. Like, not only were there some spots cut, and it's understandable if your movie's 4 hours long that the theater's going to want it cut, or not the theaters, but the studio is going to want it cut, so theaters are more willing to put it in, or more people are willing to do repeat showings, because if it was 4 hours, people would be like, well, that was fun, never going to see that again, type deal, is I guess their mindset. But there were some parts that were like, in the 4 hour cut, clearly needed, and they're like, well, this is less important than whatever we're showing right now, so I guess we'll keep it.
It wasn't even that, though. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was clearly cut. Like, Thor had a hugely important subplot that basically got 2 scenes dedicated to it.
Where he's like in a swimming pool and then screaming about some shit, and you're like, what?
But during the Hulk fights, the Hulkbuster fights, Tony hits the Hulk with the elevator, and then suddenly they're halfway up a building. Like, there was just shit like that where it was just clear that they just cut as quickly as they could without much thought. Also, the CGI and effects in this movie were noticeably worse than
Avengers 1. Yeah, that's for sure.
Like, there was a lot of bad green
at
screens.
First,
like
I thought it
Black
was
Widow's
weird,
on a motorcycle.
But, I mean, you gotta consider the fact you're probably cutting CGI costs when you have 9 main characters, or when you really think about it, you're hiring the 9 Avengers, who are all making decent money because they're billing high. Then you got Sam Jackson, that girl from How I Met Your Mother.
Kick-Ass.
Fat
Mary Kate and Ashley.
Fat?
Chubby Mary Kate and Ashley.
She wasn't even fat, dude. She just had a weird looking... She had a fat face, but she wasn't fat.
Okay, whatever.
She had a weird face.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
There was a lot of money put into this.
Yeah, no. Definitely. But editing and CGI, yeah, like we said, it had some weird shit going on there, but overall, I mean, the CGI is understandable. I mean, the budget would have been monstrous at a 4-hour movie with whatever. I don't really understand why Joss made it 4 hours and didn't cut it earlier, but I mean, I guess we're going to have a lot of deleted scenes or an extended cut coming out, which, I don't know, the extended cut might make it better. The Daredevil movie was a lot better with the extended cut, to be fair. At first, I think something we both really disliked was Ultron and just how he was done. Mm-hmm. To be honest, this Ultron was one of the things that I thought got a lot better on the second viewing. The first viewing, my problems with Ultron was he was too emoty. He made too many jokes and stuff, but you gotta consider, I still think his design was a little weird, like how he had like the almost organic look comparatively to like his
mouth moved organically,
like the comics and the cartoons and stuff. But I mean, considering Iron Man is kind of his creator, the one-liners and stuff aren't too odd to me. Because first off, he's supposed to be the first thinking mechanical life is the idea, which even Jarvis can achieve, and it's made out of the brain of Tony Stark. I'm sure they get more into that in the extended cut, but I mean, when Ant-Man created him in the comics, the idea is that Hank Pym's mind was, some of his brainwaves were transferred in there, so I'm sure Tony Stark had a similar thing going on, and that's why at a lot of points he acted a lot like the anti-Tony Stark, I suppose, like he acted like Tony Stark, but with a different philosophy, and they kept mentioning how he was a lot like Tony Stark. If you remember, in the movie, Captain America was often like, where do you think he gets that from? And shit like that.
I don't know. I still didn't like Ultron. I mean, I get it that he was like kind of emotive and took after Tony. But I think especially when they introduced Vision, Ultron's design was robotic, but then they kind of like gave him emotions and all this stuff. Instead of being like a logical robot who realizes that humans kill humans and the best way to end violence would be to kill humans. He's a very emotional robot, so when they bring out Vision as basically a human in a robot's body with emotions and feelings and things like that, the impact of there wasn't really a contrast between the two, and I thought that was really a missed opportunity with the character.
See, that bothered me at first too. And I think in the comic books, Vision considers Ultron his dad and stuff, and that makes for some cool things, I guess. But what am I getting at? Ultron always had emotions, and especially how he was portrayed as this is Robert Downey Jr. or this is Iron Man's this is really the child of Iron Man. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I'm blanking out a little bit, but this was this really was supposed to be a lot like the anti-Iron Man, if that makes any sense. Like. He was supposed to act a lot like Iron Man, and I think it showed, and that's why he grew on me the second time. At first, I just didn't like him, but yeah, you know, I didn't mind him the second time around watching this.
Also, I thought probably the worst part of this movie was Hawkeye. They really leaned hard on Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is the weakest of the cast by far. And, I mean, he has this whole contrived plot where he secretly has a family. He has, like, a wife and a kid, and they're hiding out in the woods, and they're not connected to the internet, so no one can find them. But then, in the first Avengers movie, he was trying to get with Black Widow, and it seems like Joss Whedon just kind of, he's like, oh, we need a reason that he would not, where he would be against the Avengers for Civil War, and it didn't really work out. He's not a good actor anyway, but, I mean, Jeremy Renner, but it just really didn't work. That was another big problem I had.
And then, at first I had that same problem, but again, I kind of changed my mind with it because at first I was against it, but when you think about it, you look at this universe, nothing is the same in this universe, or very few things are the same in this universe to Marvel. They kind of just share characters' names, and it's just like you shouldn't care about it because whatever. And I think changing his character to this point where he kind of became more of a power character was good, because in the first movie it's like, hey look, it's Arrow Guy, and now you kind of have more of a characterization of him. And Hawkeye's always been a cool character. I would have preferred more of his original type character, but I think since they did what they did, it was kind of nice to see him finally kind of get a main role. Hawkeye's never going to get a movie. I don't know if anyone really would see the movie. I'm sure people would, but I mean, comparatively to like any other character there, he wouldn't get a movie. And I think a lot of people who watched these movies wanted to learn more about him. And I think especially with people trying to give... he needed a reason to get out of the Avengers, because with no character, he basically was in the Avengers because it seemed like Scarlett Johansson was in the Avengers, and that was the only reason for him. But, I don't know. I didn't mind Hawkeye the second time around. I kind of forgot about... I just kind of tried to ignore old continuity and kind of just take it as a fun movie. And in that way, since no one else was really doing anything with Hawkeye, I thought he was more of one of the moldable characters you could work with. But I think we should go into one of the biggest problems with this movie, and that's probably Joss Whedon's blatant disregard for the previous continuity in this universe. I would even say including his own continuity.
Nothing before this movie mattered. You might as well have just made it the start.
I mean, it basically said Iron Man still has his armors. But I mean, like, the Avengers disassembled in Avengers 1, and they kind of said, we'll come back if we're ever needed again. And it's like, raiding Hydra bases could have been a Captain America only task, and then he could have found this bigger conspiracy and then called for the Avengers to team up with them. Literally, there were 100 ways that this could have been better done so that you had the Avengers come back together. But for some reason, he just didn't even care, and for some reason decided to ignore kind of his own breakup of the Avengers, like the call when you need us type thing. On top of that, he ignored Iron Man 3's continuity and decided Tony Stark, for no explanation, decided to re-jump in the Iron Man suit. Again, like I said, with no explanation. Thor 2, I don't even remember what happened in that movie, so maybe they broke continuity. And I guess Captain America kind of, nothing really was broken there, but it was mainly with his own Avengers movie and Iron Man 3, and I thought that was weird because those are the big movies in the series, the Iron Man and the Avengers.
Yeah, Joss Whedon is lazy, like usual.
Yeah, maybe they explained it more. I think there was... Here's the thing. I think there was more before the snow scene. I think there was more before the snow scene originally. I think there must have been a scene before it.
The whole snow scene was CGI and it looked so bad.
Yeah, but didn't it feel... That was another weird thing. When I learned it was 4 hours the second time, I kind of believed it right off the bat because it seemed like there was something beforehand.
There was so much stuff missing. Things would just happen without reason, and it's pretty clear what Joss Whedon's next project is going to be. Paranormal Activity.
Oh yeah, he did a lot of weird editing points where it was like...
There's one where right after Scarlet Witch first appears, she uses her power on Captain America, and then she walks out of the door, and then they reverse the shot in double speed, and it's really bizarre. And then later, Scarlett Johansson gets hit with the nightmare ray.
They're going through the hospital or whatever.
And they're going through the hospital, and there's like little girls with their mouths blocked with little weird skin-colored sensors, and it's going in fast motion. It's like...
I mean, it's obvious Marvel had them toss a lot of these premonitions in there for the later movies, or what could happen, because, like, obviously that was Thanos' rock, and that was supposed to be the end of... at one point when Robert Downey Jr. sees the Avengers dead, it's obviously supposed to be Thanos' rock of whatever he sits on. So I guess those are supposed to be premonitions for the future, and the Avengers are going to overtake it or something.
And then Thor's, which are arguably the most important, which basically lead him to the conclusion that someone is setting all this up.
At least for this film, are the most important.
For the most important part of this film, Thor goes...
Actually, no, because he's getting the Infinity Stones. You're right, it is the most important by far.
Because he figures out that someone's collecting the Infinity Stones, and at first we see the vision for like 3 seconds, and Thor's like, I have to investigate. Then he jumps in a pool, and then he comes back, and it's not brought up again until the very last scene of the movie when Thor says, someone's getting the Infinity Stones, I'm gonna go figure it out. And then he flies away.
I'm hoping Phase 3, and it sounds like Phase 1 kind of all came together to the Avengers. Phase 2 didn't come to this conclusion at all. It was just movies, because they didn't... I don't think... They had this movie planned. They've had Thanos planned probably since first Avenger came out. Alright, so it's not like... probably Iron Man 2 came out. They've had Thanos planned. But the thing is, when I watched this movie, it was weird because it was like... For some reason, they couldn't figure out how to relate Phase 2 to this at all.
This movie was not the Phase 2 movie.
It seems like this movie was setting up Phase 3, which is going to set up Thanos. And even Phase 1 was setting up for Thanos. This is supposed to be probably the big trilogy end before we have some sort of rehaul. I would assume we're going to get a new status quo with a new group of Avengers. And
I feel like Josh really wanted to do the Ultron movie.
Josh Whedon. Yeah.
But
Josh, no, definitely.
Josh really wanted to do the Ultron movie, but he didn't want to just do the Ant-Man movie. So he forced them, or he kind of forced them or pushed them into putting Ultron as this movie instead of Ant-Man. And then instead of making Civil War Avengers 2, which would make the most sense, it became a Captain America movie that just stars everybody anyway.
Well, this should have been Captain America 2. This could have been Captain America 2. Here's what you do. Captain America, Robert Downey Jr., and Ant-Man team up. What happens is, because they want Robert Downey Jr. to feel an emotional connection to Ultron, he's going to kind of blame this, and the idea is that he's trying to make Sentries, which he has been trying to do since Iron Man 2, is kind of like be able to quit the Avengers. The end goal, he says, is to quit, and that's basically the only continuity kept from Iron Man 3. So it shows, but it would have been cooler if we saw Hank Pym, who's the Ant-Man, or even if you want to make an older Hank Pym, and Scott Lang is the one who helps Iron Man fight Ultron. But basically, you have Iron Man create the mind of Ultron, and maybe Ant-Man helps, because Ant-Man's biggest role in Marvel, I would say one of his biggest roles, is creating Ultron, and eventually Ultron creating Vision. So in a way, he kind of has... that's the emotional tug on that character, is basically he fucked up, created Ultron, and created huge problems, caused people to die and stuff, and it's all his fault, and that's something that tortures him as a character. Taking that away from him, I don't know what depth you're going to give him, especially with taking away, because I would assume Janet's not going to be in the movie if they're going to start with Scott Lang, or if Janet's in it, it's like, I beat my wife at one point, and it's like...
It's indicated that Hank Pym doesn't even get to be Ant-Man.
It's indicated that he was Ant-Man.
No. We watched the trailer again. He doesn't say anywhere anything like that.
But that's the second
It implies that Hank Pym created the Ant-Man suit with the bald guy who becomes Wasp. And that he's like, I want the suit for good instead of evil because this guy's a jackass. The implication is that Hank Pym has literally never gotten to be Ant-Man. Which is a strange
I also think it's weird that Yellow Jacket was like the 18th persona of Hank Pym. Hank Pym was Ant-Man, then Giant Man, then Goliath, then Hawkeye, and basically has been every character that's ever appeared in the Marvel Universe. But
Iron Man again.
That's the weird thing is, yeah, it does, because he's like, my suit's better than yours, Tony, and then he comes out as his... Last week I was in my other Ant-Man, basically. So that was weird. Or that's gonna be weird, I guess. But instead of continuing to criticize the universe, we got off topic.
Yeah, back onto the train of thought.
I think what we should talk about next, since I think we kind of finished that last conversation, if you want.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. What did you think of them?
Well. Okay. Quicksilver was a racist depiction of a Russian man, which I thought was funny. Neither character could keep up their Russian accent. They switched between American and Russian accents, seemingly at random.
Yeah.
Quicksilver was done far worse than Days of Future Past. Quicksilver's death, spoilers, was gay as fuck. And Scarlet Witch... As I understand it, Scarlet Witch got really underpowered, basically, because... As far as I understand it, she can just destroy universes at will, but
she can't really
I don't know a lot about the character, so maybe.
I mean, You gotta understand, too, this is in the early phases of her powers. Seemingly, so, I mean, it's kind of expected that she'll probably become up-powered later. That's kind of what it seemed like. And she was pretty powerful in the movie, if you remember.
Yeah, she was.
I mean, it's not like they were like, oh, you can't even fight shit anymore. No. On Friday, I would have totally agreed with you. Today, I will say, I thought the choices were weird. I'm still unsure what I think about Scarlet Witch. Quicksilver was not done as well as Days of Future Past. The outfit, or not the outfit, but the general look was better than Days of Future Past, in all honesty. Yes.
Generic Russian man?
Okay, compared to guy who looks like he's dressed like a hipster because
I like the hipster look.
He wore steampunk goggles and an 80s Back to the Future jacket. He looked like a retard. I apologize.
Connor, I have two things.
You don't read the comics.
First, don't get off the rails because they won't attack you if you're on the rails, and switch to the Dirty Harry
Shut
gun.
up.
But anyway, back to the movie. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like Quicksilver. I was fine with Scarlet Witch, but...
Could I at least finish my thoughts on Quicksilver?
Sorry, go for it.
But, so basically, I thought Quicksilver was done well. They did kind of do the Russian accent thing. It was weird at times, because it was like, they kind of went out of it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was on Friday, because Friday I was really pissed off at the crowd, because they wouldn't shut the fuck up. They'd be like, Thor, aka fucking Thor. Then it'd be, Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, has 1,000 Iron Man armors, and they fly it around. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
AKA Unknown.
AKA Persona not yet revealed, but I think it's actually Deadpool. I think it's actually Cringe Pool. But, I thought he was done alright, actually, Quicksilver. At first in the trailers, I'm like, he kind of just looks like they slightly sped it. The CGI made it kind of look like he sped up, like they just clipped him in and CGI'd a trail, which they kind of did, but it looked better in the final cut than it did in the trailers. I really liked the slowdown. It was done in Days of Future Past better. No way around that. But I liked how this was done differently. And obviously they killed him off. I didn't think his death was terrible. I never did. I mean, he did it to save a civilian, which kind of shows a character arc.
I like that he died with a one-liner.
I mean, he was kind of always shown to be like, I don't know. I don't know. But long story short, I mean, I don't know. He didn't really die with a one-liner, sort of.
You didn't see that coming. I mean, he could have said something retarded or just died quietly.
It was kind of just like he saved him, and he said, I bet you didn't see that coming because he saved the dude's life, and it looked like Hawkeye basically did look like he was, I don't know. He's just kind of being a cocky douche about his powers, which I thought he kind of was a cocky douche in the movie. He cared about his sister. That was about his whole story arc. He didn't do much. I just didn't mind Quicksilver as a character. Scarlet Witch, obviously she was down-powered a little bit, but I mean, most of the time she didn't use more powers than that in the comics, so, I mean, again, I'm not going to bitch about that. At first I didn't like the actress they used, but I realized that who really cares? There could be worse castings out there. Jeremy Renner is Hawkeye. I don't know. I didn't hate her. Whatever. Mary-Kate and Ashley 3, the younger edition. Yeah. It's also nice to have more female Avengers on there, to be honest. I mean, I'm not a feminist or anything, but it'd be a major cock party if out of the literal 12 Avengers we've seen by now, if you count the new Avengers at the end and we're getting Spider-Man in the next movie, be a huge-ass cock fest. I mean, no doubt Vision's a dude. I mean, it's implied, especially since he starts dating Scarlet Witch in West Coast Avengers. Just kind of fucked up. Because he's a robot. But, I mean, whatever. I'm not complaining too much. I just think it's fucked up. But anyway. I don't know. It wasn't a terrible casting. Especially for a younger Scarlet Witch. I guess she's kind of young.
Yeah,
she's a teenager.
I don't know. I don't know who I would have picked above her.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't hate her. I didn't hate her
I
at
mean,
all. I liked her a lot better than Kick-Ass.
See, at first I hated Kick-Ass the first time, especially compared to the dude who played him in Days of Future Past. I praise his performance so much, even though I couldn't tell you his name if you told me 15 minutes ago. Whatever. Like I was saying, pretty good. I didn't mind him. Vision was also the new addition. I thought he looked a little odd. I would have preferred a little more of an android look to him, but he looked more human than android in this form. It was actually kind of funny because the first time I saw the suit, like just how it's like the CGI looks and stuff, kind of just looked like Man of Steel painted weird, like Superman. Like he had like the cape and the studs. Like didn't the studs on the suit though?
Yeah, I get you.
Like it looked kind of like exactly like Superman, which I thought was weird. Or the Man of Steel. They probably never said Superman in that movie.
I don't know.
I think they did. I don't know. Whatever.
Days of Future Past was definitely the better one of the two, but this one wasn't as terrible as I figured it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I
disliked so many things the first time I saw this movie that the second time around I enjoyed more. I think part of that was the crowd, and part of it was that I was really pissed off that day for some reason. Mostly because Aidan would say a bunch of retarded shit during the movie that he knew nothing about. He was popping off at the mouth, as Tupac would say. You know? But, yeah. So, what else do you have to complain about?
Well, I thought
I
thought the ending action scene was kind of shitty. It wasn't terribly done for the most part, but I thought that I don't know. I just didn't feel real threatened by Ultron as a villain. I thought the Iron Man army had been done in Iron Man 2 before. These guys, the Iron Man suits that he had built himself, which should have been quite the threat, were getting taken down easier than the Jatari from the first movie.
Alright.
And, you know, I didn't feel real threatened, and then his plot to drop the city. Hold on. His plot to drop the city. I didn't think too much of the. It's wrong.
Yes, I know.
His plot to drop the city, I didn't think too much of. It was kind of a dumb little plot thing. I guess I can forgive that, but at the end, it's resolved so simply where Iron Man and Thor just punch it and it explodes and the rubble just disappears and everyone's A-okay and the movie ends, and I didn't think too much of it.
Here are my thoughts. The Iron Man army was, yes, done in in Iron Man 2, but those were taken down as easy as butter as well. To be fair, first off...
Okay. Sorry.
Please let me speak. The fucking army was done in Iron Man 2. Okay, we got that. But here's the thing. This time, these were all Ultrons. Those were military robots. Those were mindless bots that were made by a different person other than Iron Man. These were Ultron's robots that were made in a factory, less superior to, as compared to Iron Man's, because it was like the Hydra factory. It's not going to be as strong as Iron Man's factory, and not all of them were made out of vibranium like Ultron was. I thought they could have done more to defeat Ultron at the end, but I didn't think his plot, where he was trying to blow up the city, was that dumb, because he keeps talking, he had like a weird meteor fetish the whole time, and he wanted to blow up the city with a meteor, and he basically made the city into a huge meteor. It was kind of threatening because he would have killed all the humans on the city, and it caused Avengers to have the headache of saving the civilians on there as well as saving the rest of the Earth simultaneously, instead of just having to fight Ultron, which would have made the fight lackluster. And that's why I didn't think the climax was actually that bad of a climax. The thing I would have improved, that being said, is in the movie, in the first movie, you felt a lot more teamwork because people were kind of flying around, helping each other out. You saw all of them interact separately with each other. Like, there'd be times Hawkeye would help out Iron Man, etc. In this, it seemed like Captain America and Thor work together. Iron Man's doing shit by himself. Quicksilver's helping himself, you know. It was kind of like more spread out. And when they did do the circle thing from the first movie, I thought in the first movie they did the score, which I thought was really awesome. and they kind of slowed it down and gave you time to like absorb the badassery of it being the first like huge movie crossover. I mean, obviously you have things like House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, or you have Wolfman and stuff. But I mean, it's the first $100 million action movie where you have these huge named stars jumping around and fighting shit, and it was kind of cool, especially for a superhero movie, because you're finally seeing a coherent movie universe, I should say. One that's not like restarted or like these are supposed to be coherent movies, and it was cool to see all of those come together for one climax. And that's something that I think the theme song was very epic and really captured that emotion. When they circled up there, it's like Joss Whedon wanted to reuse that shot, but did it a lot worse this time. The first movie got me kind of excited, like, yeah, go Avengers, and this one was just kind of like, oh, he did that shot again. And that's my biggest problem with that fight scene. Another thing I want to point out quick, though, before we move on and I forget, the other thing I really thought would have been better, I think Ultron should have been voiced by Robert Downey Jr., since he based a lot of his philosophy on Robert Downey Jr. and took a lot of the ideals of him, but twisted it into an evil sense, and that's what he did for Hank Pym in the comics. Not taking his voice, but I mean, he took a lot of his philosophy but turned it into an evil twist. Now you're trying to do the same thing with Iron Man, and you don't really do that twist, which was the weird part to me. So I think it would have been cooler if he did that.
That would have been pretty cool.
Or at least more of a mimic to Robert Downey Jr.
I don't know.
He just mimicked his one-liners.
I guess in the end I would have liked it if... I don't know. I guess I would have liked it more if they had just a few stronger enemies, or just Ultron himself as a really powerful enemy than a whole legion of easy to take out cannon fodder just to set up cool scenes. I think that would have been a lot more.
Yeah, I would have done like 5
intense,
strong or Ultrons instead of like 1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like 10 strong Ultrons, and each one has an Ultron, or each of them have a couple. I know what you mean there. Because Ultron always did have multiple forms and garbage.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not too out of the comic universe, which I don't mind the movie being out of the comic universe. Otherwise, like originally, I'd be a lot more pissed off about a lot of the stuff. But I don't even know what else I have to say, unless you have another real point to comment on.
There was one. Give me a second and I'll see if it comes to me.
See, there were a lot of things that I disliked, and a lot of things I liked. I was kind of confused about Maria Hill's character. Just a brief thing. This won't take long, but I mean, did she really work for Nick Fury?
She was a plant by Nick Fury. They just didn't go into it. I assume it's something that they built on more or something, but...
Okay, because the first time I was confused, because I was like, why is she working for the Avengers in the comics? She was kind of like, not really against Iron Man. I don't know. I didn't know. I thought it was a little weird, because she's not really characterized anything like that.
I don't know. I thought there was another lack of setup with the characters. Like, instead of setting up Phase 3, this could have been... If you added an intro, it could have been the first movie, it could have been the third movie, it could have been the 10th movie. There was really nothing placing it anywhere in the universe besides who showed up.
I mean, like you said, this literally could have been the first movie. Since there was no real setup, and the first Avengers movie, they just kind of set up the Avengers assembling and fighting this villain that would eventually return for it's the Thanos' army, which I assume we're going to see a more epic, 10 times as powerful army, and this time they can't just Phantom Menace out of it, you know, like the first movie. But, I don't know. This movie could have been the first movie. I agree with you. Overall, what do you think about, or unless you have anything else to say, which I don't.
There was one more thing I wanted to touch on, but you were into something, and I didn't interrupt you.
No, I said something about Maria Hill, and then that's all I had to say.
You know, overall, I stand by it. I really didn't like the movie. I still think it's easily one of the weakest parts. I think it's above Thor 2, but it's not incredible. It's not incredibly memorable. I don't know, it just kind of fell short for me.
Yeah, I mean, I hated it the first time. No doubt it was in my worst 3 movies. The second time, I thought it was better than I did the first time. I'm not saying it's up there on the ranks for best Marvel movies in the cinematic universe, that is. But I don't know. I disliked it less the second time. I think there was a lot that I actually kind of missed, that I kind of gained more enjoyment from. So there was a lot of negatives and a lot of things I disliked. Like, I hated Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch the first time I saw it. I was disgusted by them. Second time, I was like, you know, I mean, it could have been worse. And I think the biggest problem with Quicksilver for me, if this was the first time Quicksilver was done, it would bother me less, but I loved how he was done in Days of Future Past, which is weird, because I thought Days of Future Past one, when I saw the art, I was cringing at how bad it looked, in my opinion.
Everything in Days of Future Past was done so well.
Days of Future Past was a good-ass movie, which is why I should really pick that up. I should also pick up Winter Soldier, because that was one of my favorite Marvel movies. And I'm not just talking about the cinematic universe, I'm talking about overall.
Yeah, I think outside of the cinematic universe, Days of Future Past is probably my favorite, and inside it, it's easily Guardians. And if you wanna, Guardians is kind of like a very not connected with the universe yet, so...
Well,
I'd say my favorite that is actually like a big part of the universe.
Well, it's gonna be huge.
It will be, yeah.
Because they're setting up Thanos more. So I would assume they're gonna get more into that as time goes on. But it's interesting too, because now with that in the comics, it went from like one book that gets canceled on and off every month to like 70 books. Like, I think everyone but Groot and and Gamora have a solo title, either out or coming out.
I mean, Rocket
and
Raccoon
it's like,
is...
holy fuck. And then they have Guardians Team Up and Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians 3000, which features the original Guardians of the Universe, which is just the Avengers from the year 3000, basically. That's kind of cool. Which, I mean, they're not my favorite team, admittedly. I didn't just jump on the bandwagon and fucking wear my Groot t-shirt every day to my junior high dance. But I liked the movie. I hope Zach Galifianakis is in the next one as Venom. Okay, well, what did you or would you suggest this movie? Oh wait, no, you already did. You already suggested.
No, I don't suggest it.
My thoughts on this movie. I thought it was good, like I said. I thought it was shitty the first time, and what I would say is, if you dislike it the first time, watch it a second time. If you still don't like it, it's understandable. If you kind of enjoyed it the second time, like I kind of enjoyed it the second time, good for you. Congratulations. Most people, or some people won't. Some people really will. And I honestly, this won't be one of those movies that down the line I'm like, I really want to rewatch that movie. Like, I think the first Avengers was a really good movie, but I don't think this one will go down in my mind as that. I think it'll go down as it ended up being okay instead of shitty. Would be.